Hello, everyone, and thank you so much today for joining our webinar on how your international recruitment strategy should differ from domestic. If you want to go to the next slide, Emma, I'll just go over the panel of speakers today. So I am Laura Holmes. I am the head of client partnerships for IDP Connect, and I'm joined by my fellow colleagues, Elle Butler, also from IDP Connect, Derrick from University of Houston, and Patricia Ferguson from Alamo Colleges District. So for today's agenda, I'm just going to quickly give a less than 5-minute intro for who is IDP, just so those on the call who are not familiar know a little bit about our organization. Then I will pass it along to my colleague, Elle Butler, who will be speaking about building an international strategy, followed by Derrick, talking a bit about his experience from the University of Houston, as well as some of his previous institutions, and Patricia Ferguson will wrap things up. So I first want to thank everyone again for attending the session today. We actually did this session live at NACAC in September in Houston, and it was largely popular. And I know a lot of the attendees had actually asked to do this again as a webinar. So here we are today. I'm very happy and excited to be covering this content. So first, as I mentioned, I just wanted to give a very quick overview of IDP Connect and who we are and the services that we provide, just for some additional context. So IDP, we are known for our international student counseling. We have several offices in countries from around the world. We offer digital marketing services really to help institutions build up brand awareness. And we also offer IQ intelligence services, which is our unparalleled set of data tools. So I'll first start with our global scale and our international student counseling services. So in the areas that you see on the screen that are the orangish red color, those are locations where we have physical offices, where international students from those countries are able to sit down with our international student counselors and talk to them about the best fit colleges and universities for the students, depending on their overall needs. And the colors that are that yellowish color, those are the destinations where we send students. So we partner with institutions in the US, in Canada, in Ireland, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. As far as our global reach goes, we also offer and provide digital marketing services. So as you can see on the screen here, we run and operate several hot courses websites as well as IDP websites. And this really allows us to help to promote institutions across all of these sites to be able to give some global reach to our partner institutions. And then finally, because we run and operate so many of those international sites, we're able to collect a pool full of very important data that schools are utilizing to help shape their strategic plan. So the data that is provided is really taking a look at all of the millions of visitors that we have to our sites each year, and allows schools to be able to drill down and see, if they're looking to promote specific programs, like in the first top example that you see in the right hand, you'll see that this is showing students that are looking at studying under the subject area of travel and tourism and hospitality. What would the top city be for students that are looking at studying undergraduate programs in the US? And you see that Ho Chi Minh City is the top of that list. And then on the right-hand side, it's also showing some comparative information where if you're looking, what are the top programs in, say, India, computer science kind of shows up at the top. So this is just a quick overview of some of the different services that we provide as IDP, just to give you a little bit of background of who we are. So finally, I've dropped in a couple of key milestones, also just to kind of highlight how long IDP has been around. So we've been in the industry for over 50 years now, getting our start back in 1969. You can see some key acquisitions, and we are also a co-owner of IELTS. So in 1989, IELTS was launched by IDP, British Council, and Cambridge Assessment. In 2017, IDP acquired an organization called Hot Courses, which I had shown on a previous slide. So those are international sites where we're able to help to promote our partner institutions in markets from around the world, and also hosted locally and translated into local language. And then finally, in 2019, we joined the IDP Connect team with the IDP Education team and have formed one organization, which is IDP Connect. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues because I know you're really here to hear from them. So I will pass it along to Elle Butler, who will be talking about building an international strategy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. Appreciate the introduction and welcome everyone. Thanks for being with us here today for this session. We had a lot of fun presenting it at NACAC. I hope you find it super valuable as well. So I am going to talk about building an international strategy before we jump into our institutions who are joining us to talk about their specific strategies. So why is building an international strategy so important? Well, unlike domestic students, international students usually have very few preconceived notions about your university. So things like whether your university is known for its business school, has a strong football team, and so on. Thus, there is a tremendous opportunity to shape the narrative that international students are finding online about your institution. Of note, what might traditionally matter to domestic students when selecting their institution, such as driving distance to home, the feeling that they get when they attended an open house or visited a residence hall, might not be strong deciding factors for international students. Therefore, there is a massive opportunity to make a strong initial impression on both students and parents and to speak to the factors that are most critical to them. So where do you begin when building your institution's international strategy? Well, first you want to evaluate your resources. You want to ask yourself, how much is my institution already spending on such a strategy? And what are the results? Maybe there is one in place, maybe it's non-existent. What resources are in place to support an international recruitment and marketing strategy? And this includes both human resources and financial resources. So some institutions have specialized international marketing staff, while others rely on a central marketing division who might service multiple schools, colleges, and units. Still others might have no human resources or support in place for carrying out such a strategy. But in that case, all hope is not lost. You can still consider starting a small scale strategy with the help of a graduate intern or an external company. Of course, financial resources can be a bigger hurdle, which means you have to get buy-in for the strategy across your campus. And getting buy-in for an international marketing strategy across campus means getting buy-in in two distinct areas. First, getting buy-in for internationalization, and second, getting buy-in for digital marketing. Because you simply cannot market to international students solely through traditional marketing and travel. So a bit more on advocating for internationalization across your campus. This is critical to getting buy-in for an international strategy. Some of you may know in my previous life, I worked at Temple University and King's College, where I and our other international team members would advocate to leadership, board of trustee members, whoever was necessary in order to get buy-in into internationalization and increased support for initiatives that would increase our international enrollment. So how do you make such a case? Well, you have to have your facts ready. I'm sure you all know the billions of dollars that international students bring to the US and Canadian economies. You also know that the number of domestic high school students graduating and heading to college in both the US and Canada has been declining. So this means that international students are becoming increasingly important to keeping our classrooms full and our tuition revenue up. But even more impactful than those points, in my opinion, are the results of a Duke University study that showed the demonstrable benefit that international students bring to our campuses and our countries. So Duke University researchers studied alumni from several universities. They found that domestic students who engaged with international students while on campus are more likely later in life to appreciate art and literature, to place current problems in historical perspective, and to read or speak a foreign language. They are also more likely to re-examine their political and religious viewpoints and their beliefs about other races or ethnicities. These findings apply to US students who actively interacted with international students in classrooms, dorms, or elsewhere during their years at an institution. So for these and many other reasons, we must affirm the importance of international students to our countries, to our campuses, in order to get this buy-in. The second thing that you must advocate for is digital marketing. So you simply cannot travel and recruit everywhere. And even in places where you do travel, students are looking for you online. So you can't afford to be missing out on the opportunity to reach these students digitally. Digital marketing generates both inquiries and applications, and it delivers conversion on each. It encourages people to act in the moment, and it provides the method for them to do so. It is more cost-effective than traditional marketing. It's available 24/7, and it's global, allowing you to expand the reach of your lead generation efforts into markets where you may not travel to or may not have an agency presence. And most importantly for this field, it's where the students are. So if you want to meet students where they are using digital channels to research you. So once you have evaluated your resources, you've got your human and financial resources in order, you've advocated across campus and everyone is buying into the idea, you begin to form your objectives. And these are very much related to your enrollment objectives because that's what they will directly support. So perhaps you want to raise brand awareness in diverse markets, encourage click-throughs from a particular country to your website. Maybe you want to promote a certain program to international students. Whatever your objective may be, it will help guide the tactics and channels that you use to disseminate your marketing message and recruit international students. In order to disseminate a message, you need to know where it's going to go. And it looks like our slides might have got a little mixed up here. So I'm going to jump ahead. Yes, there we go. Understanding target markets. So thank you, Emma. So in order to disseminate a message, you need to know where it's going to go. So you need to identify which countries or regions that you want to target. So to do this, you want to look at the data of international student mobility. So of course, using historical sources like Open Doors in the US and IRCC in Canada, and where your applications and inquiries have typically come from in the past, but also staying ahead of the curve and looking at real-time prospective student data, such as our demand tracker tool, which tracks international student search behaviors across our websites. So because we hold the largest data set on prospective student demand in the world, we're able to help you identify new markets for recruitment travel and marketing investments. And with this detailed real-time data, you can target countries and regions with potential students who are likely to want your institution's unique programs and offerings. So now that you've identified your target markets, you have to do some research into understanding them. And this is critical, especially in a field like international education, where you might market to a student from Brazil differently than how you'd market to a student from China. So this information on your target markets can come from various sources, market reports online, anecdotal evidence and experience from your recruitment travels in country. But my very favorite is from focus groups with your current international students. And Emma, if you could just hop back one slide. There we go. Yep. So focus groups with current international students, my favorite way to glean information about your target market. I used to run such focus groups when I worked at Temple University. We would do both mixed country focus groups as well as country-specific ones. And we found we could get really great insights when we did country-specific focus groups. Students seemed to open up much more about their culture, their values, what kinds of marketing and recruitment would be best for their country. And once you start to understand your target markets a bit more, a helpful way to organize your customers is through buyer personas, which are essentially fictional representations of your various user types using a combination of demographic and psychographic data. It can also be really helpful to discuss these buyer personas with your agents for their insights into your specific student target markets. And then once you have a solid understanding of your target markets, you'll want to ensure that you are creating really great content. And in order to engage people with your content, you have to inform them and entertain them. But most importantly, you have to differentiate yourself. So know what makes your institution unique and be able to communicate that to prospective students. So thinking about what makes your university unique, we are all familiar with the 3-in-a-tree advertising style that is so typical of higher education institutions. So there are 4 different institutions on this slide. How can international students differentiate between them? And if you happen to recognize your institution on this slide, my apologies for using you as an example, but we know that the 3-in-a-tree photos are ubiquitous across our industry, and they don't really tell international students much about your campus. Speaking of unique marketing, let's take a look at these very unique logos as well and slogans. So once again, this kind of marketing is doing no favors for international students. We have multiple different institutions here who are all using the same exact slogan. So institutions, please do your research when you're releasing new branding or slogans. If 9 other institutions are already using it, you probably should avoid using it yourself. So what can we do about it to avoid this? Well, it is critical that you know your institution's unique selling points that will be attractive to international students. Do you have the best engineering program in your state? Are you in close proximity to the center of your city? Do you have the best ski slopes right outside your campus? Tell these stories to international students because that's what they want to hear, and it's different from what other institutions are saying. Every single institution says they have high quality faculty, personalized attention, and successful career outcomes. But what are specific examples of yours at your institution? What are your international alumni doing after graduation? What kind of internships are current international students engaged in? Tell those unique stories and paint the picture for students so that they can see more clearly what makes your institution unique. So at this point, I am going to pass it over to the University of Houston, Derrick, Alex, to share how their international marketing and recruitment efforts differ from domestic. Over to you, Derrick.
Thank you, Elle. Great input. I think great insight into like what universities, what institutions need to do in terms of differentiating themselves and really targeting and catering to international audience. To give and welcome everybody that's here attending this webinar. Really happy to have you here. And I'm also super excited that this is backed by On Demand and we are doing it for the 2nd time. To give you a little bit of background about myself, I came to the United States as an international student many years ago. I worked at 5 different US institutions, both public and private. And I have dealt with many situations where I had to start the conversation on campus about why the international recruitment strategy needs to be more customized to the needs of the international audience. And when I say like it needs to be customized, one thing that we also need to be mindful, it's not about coming up with like, a completely different marketing strategy, but it's about keeping the core essence, keeping the brand, but customizing the message so that it's more relevant and more appropriate to the international student and families and all the key stakeholders that you work with outside of the United States. Now, as everybody knows, like study abroad is in high demand, and I think the numbers that I had seen was close to 6 million in global student mobility. United States, you have seen the numbers, like, fall 2022, numbers look great. Great demand also means better opportunities for us as an institution to recruit the right and qualified student. But again, when you talk about recruiting international students, when you talk about different marketing strategies, I think the very first step is to do market research and really see where the audience is, because just having or just coming up with a different strategy in a target market, which may not be appropriate based on the product you have, may not be a wise decision. And at this point, I can think of an example from Walmart, where some years ago, Walmart is very popular in the United States. A lot of people shop at Walmart. And they basically, they provide value in their products. People go and buy their products a lot in the United States. It's also very popular in Brazil. So Walmart had thought of promoting the same strategy in Brazil and started selling baseball bats in Brazil. expecting the same return that they were getting in the United States. But baseball is not a popular game in Brazil. And so that marketing strategy was not successful because they were trying to promote something which was not in demand in that particular market, which is kind of saying that just because you see a grad engineering program really going heavy on recruiting in Southern India. And if you're an undergrad art school and you start with having the same expectations of getting the same return on investment by investing in different recruitment strategies and going in that Southern Indian market to promote, I don't think you will see that return on investment. So that first step in the process, like really understanding your market, really analyzing it, where you need to invest is really critical before you do anything. Next slide, please. Now, these are just some of the Pepsi ads, depending on different countries that I got screenshots of from the website. And looking at it, you can see that they're trying to cater to different audiences around the globe, and they're trying to make it more relatable to the audience. Here, a good example is for example, if I like soccer, but I'm not from Argentina, but I see Messi, I'm like, okay, I still I believe in that product. That's more like saying for example, you don't need to always have students from that particular region to promote a program or promote to a particular country. But as long as you can build some form of link, for example, when I'll give you an example that I recently had on campus where we are trying to start promoting programs in Indonesia. And I was not able to really find students that were able to participate in the panel that were from Indonesia. So I found students that were in some popular majors that I could really promote in Indonesia, and they were international, and I brought them on the panel. So try to find the best mix, the most appropriate fit that you can, where students, families can relate to some extent and feel like, okay, if they can do it, we can do it too. Next slide, please. This is a McDonald's ad. This is one of the ads I found online. This is from India. These are two different ads. The one on the left is targeting the vegetarian population in India. I don't know if many of you may know this already, but if you don't know, 40% of Indians are vegetarians. And so McDonald's in India is promoting an American vegetarian burger. Highly unlikely that you will see this ad playing in the United States, but they have really understood the needs of the consumer, and they are making sure that they are really focusing on what the consumer wants and what they need. On the right-hand side, you see basically on the top, it says, Aapke zamane mein, baap ke zamane ke dam. That's a slogan in Hindi. Basically, it means in your times, you're getting whatever that meal is at the cost of what maybe your parents paid during their times. So what it basically means is India also is a very price sensitive market. And so they are making sure that the Indian consumer also understand that's good value that they are getting in from McDonald's. So making sure that we are targeting the right audience, making sure that we are also catering to what really matters to them in a way that makes sense to them, I think is really important. Next slide, please. Now, this is easier said than done. Now, I have worked at 5 different institutions. Sometimes I feel there is room for improvement. We need to be customizing ads. We need to have a customized brochure, customized website, everything customized based on the needs of the international student market. But sometimes the university doesn't have resources, or sometimes there is a lack of commitment because there is a heavy focus on the domestic side. Now, again, these are just a few examples. Some of you may have other examples or other reasons that you may not be getting support. But again, like, there might be lack of experience, expertise in the marketing team because in the past, they've only worked on domestic. They don't have the international expertise. University may not be able to invest financially in making it happen. A decentralized approach also, like mostly it happens like on the grad side, working in silos, like, between colleges. And sometimes it's like lack of ownership leading to a lack of collaboration. So when you are in between all these different situations and challenges, what I have done is I have not given up on it. What has really worked at, I think, all the institutions I've worked is like, just start small. Start something, identify partners on campus, like, that you will find, like maybe they are not in your department, maybe they are not in your division, but you will find some stakeholders on campus that really believe in having an international recruitment strategy that's more customized and more effective to recruit international students. If you can partner with them, if we can identify them on campus, that's awesome. What I've done is like, I've started small with like, just doing videos and testimonials, like, using my cell phone, trying to connect with the university marketing and communications department is always helpful because anything you do, you want to make sure that you're following the branding guidelines and you're following what the university expects in terms of the messages that go out to students. I also, one of the other things, like, when I worked at small schools where like, financial resources were always an issue. So I decided to learn Adobe InDesign, Photoshop, and of course, like, there are a lot of student workers that would like, be very passionate about it. And there have been situations like, where we have used in-house talent to like, come up with flyers, come up with two-page brochure where like, we are trying to meet the needs of like, international students, especially from like, the top students and sending countries. Like, if we have good traction from, say, for example, China or Vietnam, like, at least start with that and then build it from there. Like one of the other strategies that has really worked for me at some of these schools is like, using social media platforms and identifying student volunteers. Like one of the previous campuses that I used to work, any student that got a scholarship or grad assistantship, like, we used to ask them, like, we want you to lead social media for a day. And most of the students were super happy to do that. Basically, what they would do is, like, take us around campus, speak with, like, maybe their faculty, with some staff members, go to their campus housing, dining hall, whatever, like, whatever they feel was appropriate, and do some videos and send it to us. And that was a fantastic way of like really capturing what international student experiences were on campus. And that was really appreciated by international students, both undergrad and grad and families. So that was something like, which was a very like, honestly, like it was like no investment as such, but it was very effective for us. One of the other things that like, sometimes like we all get excited. I also have gotten excited about like, doing a lot of things when I think about international, but we always have to be careful. Using Google Translate or utilizing like maybe a student worker to translate stuff, just be cautious. Sometimes it's not a good idea. Like I'll give you an example. So when I was at one of my other previous universities, like somebody in my staff, like, was said or claimed that they knew Arabic and decided to help me translate like, a one-page flyer because I was getting ready to go and participate in an event in Saudi Arabia. They did it. They helped me out and I took the flyer. I went to Saudi Arabia with that flyer, but like most of it was accurate, but there was one sentence which did not make any sense in it. And what was funny is like, so I had the flyer out at like, this event, and I had a couple of students come to me and like, they would come to me and I'm like, okay, like, so let me tell you about my university. They're like, no, I don't want to hear about your university. I just want to let you know that this doesn't make any sense. And I'm letting you know because it's in Arabic. I'm like, okay, sorry about that. And then I had to take the flyer off. And like, if you look at the screen right now, like, that's a pretty good example of like, some epic fails in global branding. I'll read out a few, like, Coors translated its slogan, "Turn it loose," into Spanish, where it's the colloquial term of having diarrhea. So, and then KFC made Chinese consumers a bit apprehensive when finger licking good was translated as "eat your fingers off." So Nike had to recall thousands of products when a decoration intended to resemble fire on the back of the shoe resembled the Arabic word for Allah. And I remember that very clearly because that was the first Nike pair I bought when I came to the United States. And the first time I wore it, I had a student from Pakistan. Like I was a student back at that time. And the first time, like, I was going to my class, one of my classmates came to me and he pointed that out, and I never wore those shoes again. So we have to be careful, especially when we are doing something in-house, when we are trying to be a little bit more price sensitive and trying to get things done. Just be that extra careful. Next slide, please. Developing international recruitment strategies, just a few tips. Identify markets based on data analysis. IDP, like Elle has already shared, like, a good tool for analyzing the future student demand. One of the things that really helps us in going in the right direction is, like, being strategic. And whenever we are planning or customizing our communications plan or the way we do outreach to our international students, like, reassess your plans and do it on a consistent basis and keep track of your ROI. Like, there is always, like, one of the things I've learned is first time is never perfect. Like, you have ways to improvise it. So learn from, like, start it and then keep on improving at every step in the process. Identifying and collaborating with key campus partners, which I already shared, like, sometimes they are not in your department or division, but, like, really adds value because you need partners, like, especially when you're talking about diversifying, when you're trying to meet the needs of different markets, different countries, different students, different cultures. It's really important that you have that support on campus. And always, like, especially for people that are not in your department, that are willing to help you and support you, don't forget to recognize their efforts and involvement. And I think that goes a long way because they will continue to help, and you will probably, through that approach, you will bring in more partners and more stakeholders that will be willing to join in this ride with you. Next slide, please. Website marketing collaterals, invest in improving information, navigation, photos. Some of, like, beautiful examples showed by Elle in her slides, like, where students sitting under trees. It maybe makes sense to us because we know where exactly that tree is on campus, but to an international student who has never seen your campus, everything looks alike. So personally, I feel like, while you want to show your campus, it might make sense to show them more of, like, the resources, maybe the labs, maybe the student center, dining hall, campus housing, other facilities, events you have on campus, and show some happy faces. And also, one of the things that I try to make sure doesn't happen is, like, sometimes, like, I go out with my marketing and communications team, like, to do photo shoots on campus, and I've done it on multiple campuses. One of the things that I really focus on is not to isolate international students. Like, it's not to get a cluster of students from China and just take their photos and put it on the website. It's not about taking a cluster of Indian students or Middle Eastern students. It's about, like, showing the campus as a whole, showing the diversity, showing a mix of students, maybe hopefully, like, taking shots of students doing stuff on campus, happy faces. I think that really adds value. Social media, again, involves student ambassadors, visiting students, faculty. Something that I've done is, like, when I've done, like, I have done a couple of short-term summer programs, like, where we had the opportunity to bring in students from, like, foreign institutions, high school to our campus. I took pictures of these kids on campus, like, and and they were super happy. They put it on their social media and tagged the university and all the fun stuff. Like while they were in those short-term programs, they were visitors, but getting them as part of our social media promotion activity, I think it's really helped us in our outreach activities. Faculty members, I think, also are a great resource. Keep the social media current, keep it relevant. Also, one of the websites that I usually I'm not an expert in social media, but socialmediaexaminer.com. I think that's a good resource. I found it very helpful in gathering information and tips on social media platforms. Next slide, please. One of the things that I also want to mention is with international recruitment and yield strategies. End of the day, yes, you can do all this fun stuff and you can customize marketing, you can customize how you message and what you tell students and stuff. But the back end, on the website, you have to be very clear, you have to be super clear on what the student needs to send you, end of the day, what the deadlines are, and make it as simple, and make it simple enough so that the student really understands what you need from them, depending on the country they are coming from. So the information on the website is super duper important. The other thing is keep your application processing and communication as effective as possible. Along with customizing those recruitment strategies, if you have a very effective communications plan that is also customized to meet the needs of international students, that is going to create wonders, because then the student really feels valued. The student really understands what you are trying to tell them. The student knows that you know what documents they need to send. One of the examples, I think I had shared this example also when we were at NACAC, is one of my previous schools, all our messages, were geared towards domestic students, and our mascot was a boxer. And so every message had this "Go Boxer" theme. And so this student had student was from Vietnam, and the student had received a message from about, I think it was congratulating them for admission or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but the student received this message. It was an automated message, and it said, "Go Boxers." And I remember the student forwarding me that email and saying, "Sir, thank you for admitting me, but I had applied for computer science, and it seems like they have admitted me for boxing." So it seems like this student from Vietnam had no clue what "Go Boxers" meant. And of course, I went and I explained it to him, but that was one more reason that we had to customize our messages when we send it out to international students. Next slide, please. So you have heard this, this is a very common phrase. You need to step in their shoes to connect with them. Unless you step in somebody's shoes, it's hard to understand what they need and what they want. Next one. And with so many shoes from around the world, one size does not fit all. So it's really important to be sensitive, be savvy of the needs of the consumer, cater to what they need, and it will help us recruit more international students. Thank you.
Hello, I'm going to be doing the next part, and you can go to the next slide. My name is Patricia Ferguson, and I have about 20 years experience in recruiting. And I have about 13 years experience in domestic recruiting and then 13 years in international recruiting. So I kind of wanted to share from my perspective what I see is the difference, especially using Alamo College as a case study. So we can go to the next one. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Alamo Colleges. We're community colleges in the San Antonio area. We have 5 community colleges. San Antonio College, St. Philip's College, Palo Alto College, Northwest Vista College, and our newest one, which has not gotten certified for F1 students, is Northeast Lakeview. And we can go to the next slide. So we have a small population of international students, and we've been trying to increase it. And I would kind of want to share our experience with y'all. Right now, after COVID, we have 110 students at 4 of the colleges. And this is our breakdown. Usually we have Mexico and Vietnam kind of vying for number 1. They're always, you know, one year it's one and one year it's the other. And then we have, you know, India, Colombia, South Korea, Canada, Nigeria, Peru, Thailand for this year, but it kind of changes a little bit. We've kind of kept our profile to see what countries we should be investing in. So let's go into the next slide. So just, you know, from my perspective and what I've seen, especially here with Alamo colleges, what is the difference between domestic and international? I worked for 8 years as a domestic recruiter for Northwest Vista College here at the Alamo colleges. So especially at a community college, and we're a large community college, we have about 54,000 academic students, and we service about 100,000 students with continuing ed throughout our service area. But when I started with Northwest Vista, we came in and there was no real strategy. Basically, I was told, like, you know, we don't need recruiters, you know, the students are just going to come. Well, that has changed, especially here in the US. I think, you know, at one time, they, especially for community colleges, they just thought, okay, the students, you know, we're just they're just feeder schools for us. But that has changed. And now, at the Alamo colleges, they just hired a chief officer of strategic enrollment management who is in student success. And our area is in workforce, is where our international programs are in our system. So with domestic, you actually have a captured audience with the high schools. You know, you do the high schools visits, you develop relationships that we at Alamo colleges have a program called College Connections that we had, you know, our admissions staff go in there, our testing staff, and do the AccuPlacer for the students. So we had that relationship. The basic recruitment that they did was TACRO fairs. We now have a new program called Alamo Promise, where we have a variety of school districts, and we're adding more and more, where if they reserve their a seat at the college, they get to get free tuition. This is basically based on the concept that they apply for financial aid, and then Alamo Promises covers any gaps for our students. So this is basically what we do here in the domestic area. Of course, there is marketing campaigns that are going on. For international recruitment, when I first started off in 2009, there really wasn't any recruitment strategy, and coming in from the domestic side, you know, I had worked at universities. We kind of went out and started, you know, doing the workshops. And basically, for a recruitment strategy, you have to have some type of strategy. And there is 3 main types of recruitment. One is the armchair recruitment, you know, like using IDP, virtual fairs. And then there's face-to-face recruitments, and you already know this. A lot of it is very expensive. One fair could cost up to $15,000, and I'm sure now it is probably gone higher. And then we have agents. So for agents, it was really hard for the Alamo College at the beginning, because the paradigm was that, you know, agents should not be used, it shouldn't have commission. We kind of went through the whole process with a NACAC and the white papers, and kind of came out like, yes, you know, when you know, I came in from the domestic, and I was like, oh, you don't do that in the domestic side. There's no way that you're going to pay someone, a middle person, for something that, especially for a community college, can be done for free, right? But as I visited different countries and I learned, I realized that, especially for countries like China and in India, you know, that is in their culture. They trust that person that's local in the ground more than they trust me. So I see the value in that. We kind of came back, we've gotten new administration, and we're struggling and starting all over with ground zero for agents. So we're working on that again. The marketing of community colleges, that was so different because many countries, many international prospective students don't understand that concept of community college, and the word college in a lot of countries means high school. So it's like you're wanting me to go to high school. I already went to high school. So now, since I first started, and like I said, in 2009, I've seen the increase of knowledge in different countries, which is great. We have about an estimated 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States. And it is a must to have, the international marketing and branding out there because, they don't know us at all. We're just a little, pin in a haystack. We also need to, and this is really important, and it's kind of an issue, is that always validating the need for international recruitment budget because the focus, especially at like a large community college, is on domestic recruiting. Next slide. Okay, so what are we doing about it? Right now, especially after COVID, we had to do a lot of rethinking, revising. So we're always looking at our international enrollment trajectory. We're looking at our strategic planning. We're always constantly doing SWOTs, which are the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So we have over 30 plus programs, a lot of them in STEM fields. We have great opportunities. We have amazing faculty. And we, of course, we have that opportunity for OPT. Our weakness is that our tuition right now for international students is not competitive, and it hasn't been competitive for several years. And we've been struggling and trying to work with administration and leadership to kind of change that. But it takes it's like moving a mountain. So one of the things that we're doing is trying to look at see what resources are out there and not work in silos, which we have been for many years. So one is that now we have that strategic enrollment office with the domestic, and we already have met and tried to put in international recruitment within that strategic enrollment. Before, it's like two separate things. We're now trying to combine it so that we can have a seat at that table and have the resources that are available to that group. Also, now we have a new Office of Equity, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And this is really important because international students, bringing them into your institution is a way of promoting diversity and also equity, and then of course the inclusion. So one of the things that we've done, we had that change of strategy when we hit COVID. We couldn't travel out, we couldn't get students coming in, and one of our administrators had said, you should never let a good crisis go unchallenged, right? You have to go out there. It is an opportunity to change different things. So we started doing internationalization at home, and we brought in some programs. One is Alamo Global Student Distinction, the Global Learner Digital Pathway, and the Global Engagement Network for International Education. We also have been using our tools for data, and we've been using IDP, especially at that time, to be able to still be connected out with our student and recruitment. Next slide. Okay, so one of the things that we did is we really started working and thinking, okay, what is our moonshot? What is it? Where do we want to be in 5, 6, 10 years? And we developed our moonshot, which is we want 5% of our student body to be reflected with international students. Right now, we're at 0.20. Well, in 2020, we were at 0.20. We have not moved that much. So we got a list of our peers. both in-state and also nationally. And you can see here are our peers. And of course, Houston Community College and Lone Star are, the ones that we're looking at. Santa Monica, that they have a great percentage. So we're using data and benchmarking so that we can tell our administration, because these are the peers that we picked that were similar to our makeup. And we know that, like, especially our board, who makes a lot of the decisions, they really want this type of data. They want to know how we're doing and how do we look and how do we rank with our peers, which we don't rank very well right now. The next slide, please. So the other thing that we decided to do is really change the narrative and look into, instead of trying to develop in a silo our own strategies, we went in and looked at what Alamo College's, what is our mission, what is our vision, is our strategic objectives. So we looked, and we have in our strategic objective 2, which is principle-centered leadership, is one. We provide the opportunity for Alamo College district students, employees to develop as leaders and collaborators. And it says here, and incorporate personal and social responsibility, global citizenship, critical thinking, and lifelong learning as frameworks of principle-centered leadership into the culture of the Alamo College's district. So what we've taken that global citizen and ran with that. We have incorporated this in a lot of different things because we want our administration, our community to realize how important it is to be a global citizen and how our international students play a part in developing our other students. So next slide. So the new programs that we developed, as we were talking about, is that they're focused on that global citizenship. So the global student distinction, Alamo, this one is they get a medal at graduation, and there's 3 levels. There's citizen, diplomat, and ambassador, and they get miles for participating in sponsored programs from our Office of International Students. The Alamo Global Learner Pathway, students get digital badges. We have 9 digital badges that build up into, like, they start off with a cornerstone, milestone, and then a global learner badge. Now, for our international students, just by being international students and being here, we considered it as a study abroad. They can actually earn 6 digital badges just by their experience here. We want our international students to know how much we value them, that we understand their experience. Genie, which is the Global Engagement Network for International Education, we hear, this is kind of like, it started off as the buddy system, but it's kind of expanded. We want students to engage, connect, learn, and reflect by having multicultural experiences. Now, this Genie actually came up in a way we wanted to retain our students because we were having issues with retention. And in order to grow our student enrollment for our numbers for international students, we have to have retention. And also we know that word of mouth is the best recruitment tool. I mean, it's the best recruitment tool for domestic, but it's also especially for international students. Our international students are our best recruiters. They're going to go out there, and the way they're treated here at our college makes a big difference. So what we've developed is this program that connects international students with our local domestic students. And now we have a virtual programming that we're also connecting to with our international partners doing virtual programming, and it's kind of expanded. But this is also came apart as from that study that Elle talked about, that Duke study, and I shared the name of that study. We want our administration and our faculty to realize that our international students are a big asset, and they are, they are a valuable tool for internationalization within the classroom also. Next slide, please. So then we started also looking at, how can we use our partnerships, the smart collaborations, to make the most of our recruitment budget, which right now we have very little budget because our administration is thinking, well, our tuition's too high and we have to get that changed, not only through finance and our board. They're like, we don't want to invest too much because we're not getting the return on investment, which we're kind of stuck. So we've been able to still work with IDP because it makes sense. We are in so many markets. There's 11 and it is about under $200 a month per market, and it's generating leads. And then you can look at the tools. This is kind of an old tool. We had this back in August and it has changed, but you can look and see how many searches and views. And so basically right now, this is our recruitment strategy. IDP has been helping us still be relevant out in that market. The next one. Another tool is that when we're looking at where we should be investing our resources, the engagement and the interaction tools really helps. And if you look at this, and I should have put this next to the circle that I had on our profile. These are the same countries. So we know that this tool is very accurate as to a good reflection of the actual students that we have in that market. So the last slide, please. So basically for us, our international strategy to try to increase more, and this is, I keep telling myself it takes a long time to steer a ship. It's not going to turn overnight. We are really, really trying to get noticed within our organization so that we can have the resources that we need to be able to go out and recruit more students. So one is connecting international student enrollment with our overall strategy for our institution. And we are in the process right now. We have a whole new process for our non-citizens, including our international students. And right now I'm in the process of doing training with all of our enrollment teams at each of the colleges, and bringing up our international students and how their enrollment should be processed and making it a little bit more streamlined for our students. So tap into your institutional resources to help you with your plan. Right now, we are in the process of getting online with our international supplement application. We have an Apply Texas here for public schools in Texas. And that, is our common application, but we have to have a supplement one for, especially for community colleges, for our international. So our student success has a Guardian platform, and we're able to use it and not have to pay for it. So we're really excited about that. Find campus partners. Right now, we are partnering with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a brand new, but we, have them as a champion for us. Advocate for internationalization of institution in the big picture of how it will benefit all students by developing global citizens and preparing them for that global workforce. So that's the biggest thing, the biggest push is preparing our students for that global workforce, and all students. Recruit international champions. We're doing this by working really closely with our faculty. We have an international faculty committee that meets every month, and they work with our students, but they also are, we're a big institution and we have 5 colleges, and each one has their different culture, kind of like subculture. So, trying to get in there, and the faculty is really the key to be able to do that. Communicate with institution to show how international students are beneficial to the campus community. I think once we do that and we get more of a buy-in, then we'll have more resources to be able to bring in the international students. So right now what we're focused in is providing that community for our international students that are here so they can go out and tell our students. And we're doing, whatever we can virtually. We have not been going out to face-to-face fairs, but we're doing the virtual programming. And like I said, IDP has been really helpful with that and including that in our strategy. So I'm going to turn it over to, I guess, Elle or...
Yes, thank you, Patricia. So Laura will run us through our key takeaways, and then looks like we're right on time. So not sure we'll be able to jump into many questions, but we'll take a look at those as well. So Laura, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you guys both for presenting and sharing your insights. I will have to say that the epic fails in global branding might be my favorite slide that I've ever seen on a webinar. So I hope you all feel the same way. Some key takeaways that I really just wanted to highlight is that it's very important in developing an international strategy. It's critical to reach this increasingly important audience. Digital recruitment is necessary to reach Gen Z when they're researching institutions. And you really need to know your audience and adapt where appropriate, but always be respectful of cultural differences. And finally, utilize data and smart collaborations to reach your international goals. I realize it's 3:01, so we may not be able to get to questions, but certainly if you want to type them in, we will be able to email you the responses. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody today for joining. And thank you to our presenters as well.
Thank you so much, Laura. Yes, we had a couple questions come in about focus groups, about the Duke study. So we can include some more info on those in our follow-up email to this webinar. We might also be able to do a webinar on holding focus groups for international students as its own separate session, because there's a lot to say on that. Also, a couple of questions about our demand tracker. So we'll reach out to you folks as well with some more information on that. Finally, for those of you who might be attending the AIRC conference in Los Angeles next week, we look forward to seeing you there. We hope you come up and say hello to us. We'd love to chat in person.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.